Here begins the official part. So Helen was kind enough to ask me to say a few words before she reads from her book. So I'm going to actually read you somebody else's words first before I say anything else. Rob Shearman, who's a wonderful writer, has had this to say about Helen's poetry collection, Skeleton Leaves, which we're here to celebrate tonight. Helen Marshall takes a children's classic, strips away the flesh, and reveals the dark heart of Peter Pan beating beneath. At once about the violence of immature imaginings and the bitterness of banal adulthood, where those imaginings are abandoned, Skeleton Leaves is magical in the true meaning of the word, dangerous and wild and hauntingly seductive, disturbing as hell, yet extraordinarily compassionate, its ambition creeping up on you to quite dizzying effect. Reading these poems is an awfully big adventure indeed. So it's kind of like the same feeling I had when I first read the manuscript version of this, which was initially, you bitch. Because there's nothing more horrifying as a writer to read someone's work and go, oh, they're a way better writer than I am. That's always the worst. So, and not only is she a better poet than I am, she's a much better prose writer than I am, just adding insult to injury. So, you're just dreadful, Helen. That's all I can say.
We hate you.
We do. We all do. But actually, I did actually email around and ask a few people about what they thought of Helen's manuscript. I sent them an electronic version, and sorry, I had to scribble it down off my iPhone, which was, or my smartphone rather, because it was dying. So I had this is kind of scribbled. So I hope I've got it right. Anyway. So Jake Moritz of the University of Manchester said that he was only able to read a page before he passed out. It was so good. John Lovitz, the actor, whom I know, said, "I laughed, I cried, it was better than Cats." Catherine Graham, the well-known poet, said, Skeleton Leaves is a wonderful book. I hate Helen and don't ever want to meet her. You're not going to tell her I said this, are you? Anyway, so if I was going to read some Helen's official bio, but I think I'm not going to do that. All I'm going to say is that sometimes tremendously serendipitous events happen in our lives, and one of the ones that happened to me and Brett was meeting Helen. Well, I've kind of known Helen peripherally for years and years, but just got to know her better when she came to work for Cheesine, which to me still seems like a small miracle. And all I can say is that if you have read her work, you are lucky, and if you are her friend, you are even luckier. So.
Hear, hear.
Sum up of those quotations, wasn't it? Either make people unconscious or they shouldn't tell me things. Thank you so much for that, Sandra. That's so sweet. I think that's really, really sweet.
Is that the word?
So I wanted to say thank you, first of all, for all of you coming. I'm really actually quite verklempt. This is really lovely, and I wanted to thank Michael and Brian for hosting this party, which is lovely. Candles at home because they're afraid that we're going to burn the place down. This is a classy establishment. And of course I want to thank Sandra, who published my first poem at cheesine.com and published this book as well. And I mean, what can you really say about Sandra except that she's a force of nature? And I think that's probably the best thing I can say about anyone at all. And so you win that award.
And she's saying I'm full of wind.
Yes. And to Brett Savory at Cheesine Publications as well, who's been tremendously supportive. To Laura, who makes me a lot of soup, which is
Little sister.
Yeah. And to my parents, Rosemary and Roy, and to Chris Roberts, who did the art for this book, which is really, really nice. And of course to all of you for coming out today on what has actually been a really, really lovely September day. And there's a python outside there, and I'm really happy that you managed to come here instead of getting sort of stopped at the python. I almost was. When I like a python at the corner there. When grown-up Wendy is talking to her daughter asks her why she can't fly anymore. And Wendy says, when people grow up, they forget how to fly because it's only the innocent and the heartless who can fly. And I think innocence and heartlessness in equal measure are really what it takes to write any book at all. you need a real kind of naivete that allows you to think that you're going to get away with it, and a real heartlessness that makes you think you can demand people to show up and that they should actually listen to you read. And especially with poetry, let's be honest.
Dreadful stuff.
Dreadful stuff. So many people have said many kind things about my book, but the one thing I actually wanted to highlight is that Peter Pan at its heart is really kind of a love story. It's a very strange, innocent, and heartless love story. And so when I was thinking about what it was that I wanted to read, I decided that actually what I wanted to read to you was the love story behind it, the kind of sweet love story. And Peter Pan is a particularly kind of good place to be drawing upon, since it's also my birthday and Peter Pan is all about growing up. And this last year has been very much about growing up for me, and I think as I come to the end of my PhD and I have to join the real world where I will ostensibly be an adult with all the kind of cruelties and pain and excitement that comes along with that.
Don't be absurd.
It's there's no excitement.
It makes this book, this very tiny book, feel really close to my heart. And so thank you all for coming here to share in this with me. And so I'll just read for a little bit, and then I will let you get back to the booze. And that will be good. And to the buying in equal measure.
Well done, son.
Yes. Laura will have copies, and she can also take your cash. Yeah, just put it anywhere you want.
Oh.
It's a love story.
There we go.
2 is the beginning of the end. Elan lifting her from the covers, drowsy, as a tiny hand taps the window that was so solid, now made wet as a fish with clouded breath from his unkissed mouth. Who are you, boy? She pauses, and him languid by the window. A foot touches the bed, and she blushes at the seashell toes. Shh, she whispers, you will wake them. But he is quiet as a shadow, there in the room that was sacred, her mother said, untouched and untouchable, but there he is. And she knows he is a kind of shadow, pulled from her limbs like fleece, first not there, and then wholly emerged, heart beating from her empty belly. They fit so perfectly together that something shifts and cracks inside her like a breaking bell. That single note echoed through her windpipes and the space between lips. For him is everything. Only once did he touch me, that night we played November with a tattered blanket, smelling of lavender and Ovaltine, his thumb against a cold taut nipple. Wendy, you have such goosebumps. And I shiver, and the blanket moves like hair across us, thick with mother scents I cannot recall. Neither of us knowing what parents do, only the odd feeling of the calluses chasing teacup breasts for warmth. Lost boys snort and snore, and his hand still there, though by now his mind has wandered, so I touch the flotsam curl of hair on his temple. Autumn breathes in through the drain pipes, windows, chutes, a single moan in the throat of our little house. He and I curl together like flexing fingers. Some nights are lonely. It had seemed like such a long year of waiting to her. I strip off my clothes quietly, my skin, the layers of veins and muscle and tissue. I leave them in a neat pile beside my bed. On those nights when I am lonely, there is a howling deep in my belly, in the place you never touched. I go roaming, my wolf self naked, and we run, you and I, without our skins, with only teeth and tongues, over the wide places where we could never touch. I can feel you at my throat. I can feel your breath. On the soft hairs of my body, I can taste you. At home, our skins lie in neat, folded piles, untouched by teeth or tongue. There is no mist in the city, no sparks that flicker beyond your gaze like the eyes of the first woman you loved. Electricity has replaced fireflies as the primary source of light. Who needs a trail of breadcrumbs to navigate the London tube? There are easier ways to travel than in a house on chicken legs at 7 leagues astride. Your shadow has escaped you, and without a needle and thread, it shall roam free. It knows her, the first woman you loved, knows how to find her braid of hair dangling from the 10th-story window, knows the name to call. One night, perhaps, you shall turn a corner to see them dancing, his hand upon her hip. He is sharper in her gaze, and though you trace his steps, the steps you learned together, her smile is only for him. You are but a shadow cast upon the street. Thanks very much. Out, and I hope you have a fabulous night, and I hope you stick around. Certainly, there's more booze, there's more food, and there will be birthday cake shortly.
It's Michael's birthday, so wish everyone
his birthday.
And Helen's.
And it is also my birthday. So thank you so much.
Yay!